Welcome and thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. On the program today, we're going to be talking about something that's commonly out there for people who are approaching midlife, and that is how we can balance our hormones. Of course, there are a lot of products out there, whether it's a lotion or a pill or perhaps even an injection, that helps us kind of get that youth and vitality back that we've long since thought we had lost. But what if there's a more natural way to approach this? Perhaps it hasn't been used too often in the West, or at least it isn't on the radar for most people. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is a person who has been teaching both Qigong and Tai Chi for more than 15 years. He is also a licensed acupuncturist with a place known as Spring and Autumn Acupuncture located in Portland, Oregon. And today we're going to be talking with him about how we can balance our hormones through Chinese medicine. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program our guest, Adam Burrell. Adam, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for inviting me to be on your show today, Daniel. I appreciate Beyond 50's focus on natural medicine and personal growth.
Well, you know, natural medicine is kind of one of those things that is almost free out there if you just understand how to use it a little bit better. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the traditional ways of how we go about healing and realizing that there are more thorough ways that maybe we can approach this that have little to almost no side effects. And I'm sure that's what this is all about here.
Yeah. I'd be happy to tell you about it.
Now, how does acupuncture help with hormonal balancing? Well, what goes on there?
Well, let's just start with some basics. Acupuncture does help with hormonal balancing during menopause and other stages of life where there's some changes. Some of the symptoms we treat are hot flashes and night sweats, insomnia, decreased libido, anxiety, weight gain, memory loss. I'm talking about more than just acupuncture too. Acupuncture is what people know about, but we also use herbs and exercise, like you mentioned Qigong, and we also talk to people about dietary and lifestyle changes that can be a little healthier. We can talk in more detail if you want to about how we help with this.
Well, absolutely. I just kind of figured you were going to take it and run there a little bit, but okay.
Yeah.
So how does Chinese medicine, for instance, look at menopause? We'll go ahead and start there.
Yeah, sure. So Chinese medicine was invented 2,000 years ago, and some say even closer to 5,000 years. As you might imagine, they saw things a little differently back then. They saw menopause as part of the continuum of a healthy life, one of the many changes throughout life, including puberty and parenthood. Andropause is different, which some people call male menopause, but it is also seen as a part of the healthy continuum of life. Menopause is not a disease, it's just a change in our hormonal makeup. Women don't need to put that energy into fertility and menstruation any longer. They're free to use that energy in other ways.
Now, it's really interesting that you see the kinds of things that are available out there for people to try to bring this into balance, and sometimes they can kind of overwhelm or maybe overdo it. Is this approach something where there's more of a fail-safe in place where that's not quite as likely to happen?
Well, the fail-safe really with an acupuncturist is if you go to see someone who's licensed, we have a system that's been used for 2,000 years and has been systematized so people really know how to approach things well. And plus, we're licensed by the state. And so we have a really authoritative way to approach it. It's really easy to go to the natural food store or something and start looking through all the supplements, herbs, and vitamins and everything and just start picking things. And it just becomes overwhelming, and it's really hard to look at things from the bigger picture, but that's what we're trained to do, and that's what our system is all about. You can find some great products at the natural food stores and even in your garden if you know about them. But the nice thing, if you come to me or if you come to another licensed acupuncturist, we're really trained how to do that, and we can help you there. And it's probably easier and even cheaper to do it that way than to spend a lot of money on stuff that may or may not do what you want. The internet is a great place to look for information on those things, but some things you can't trust on the internet, and other things it's just there's a lot of complexity to it if you're just jumping into it because you have some discomfort or something you really want some help with.
Mm-hmm. Now, would it be that today's day and age of technology and the modern way that people live, does that kind of throw things off quite a bit there as opposed to a more natural approach to living?
Absolutely. We tend to see in traditional cultures, women have a different status. Women are honored a little bit more for their role in parenting and in childbirth. And I think in traditional cultures, women are also honored more when they get a little bit older and they're given a higher status. Sometimes we give women status for being beautiful when they're younger, and then we sort of forget about them as they age, just like you might see in the status of movie stars, for example. Mm-hmm. In traditional cultures, though, you tend to see few, if any, symptoms of menopause, and maybe that's because they know more natural ways to keep their lives balanced, like you're mentioning here. The other thing is our modern lifestyle brings in lots of details. We have incredible technologies and advancements, but we also have a lot of stress, a lot of emotional stuff going on. It's hard to work out. We have increased toxicity. We have a lot of new illnesses that don't seem to have been around 100 or 200 years ago. And in this country, we also have poor preventative medical care to work with a lot of these things before they become a problem. Mm-hmm. Getting a hip replacement is actually pretty easy in a way because, once your hip's out, once you hit that criteria, they go in and they do the surgery, and it's pretty polished. They've been doing it for a couple decades now. They've got it down. But actually finding a simple, effective solution for hormone imbalances is kind of hard without something like Chinese medicine.
Mm-hmm. It's really fascinating when you think about something like acupuncture and how that it works. Does acupuncture on its own really help with this quite well, or?
It does, yes. What we do is we encourage the systems of the body that are involved in the imbalance. And the truth is that menopause, and we're talking mostly about menopause right now, there are a lot of different ways in which that manifests for people. So you can't just say every person that comes in for menopause has to have the exact same treatment. That's what they tried with estrogen replacement therapy, and some people need it and some people don't. But in Chinese medicine, we really look at what the imbalance is, and we go deeper into understanding what that is, and then acupuncture can help encourage the body to return to a more balanced state.
Now, to give our listeners an idea of how, for instance, acupuncture works, how does it work to create the therapeutic effect, for instance, in helping to manage menopause or at least balance the hormones?
That's a great question, and it's something that people have been doing a lot of research on in the last few decades to try to bring this ancient therapy into a modern context with the tools we have now. And there's a bunch of theories. Some people talk about it as activating adenosine, which is a chemical that's used in the cells to make energy and to recreate energy over and over. And they say that it's activated in some case when they look at the body. Others talk about it as releasing a variety of different hormones and neurotransmitters, and they trace those and track them, and they look at what they do. Others talk about a focus on releasing muscles, talk about fascial planes that connect actually up to the organs so that you can influence the organ externally through these fascial planes that connect through the body. So there's actually a lot of scientific explanations, and it's not fully clear what's happening at any time, but it's actually pretty clear that a lot of those things may be going on all at the same time. From a Chinese medicine perspective, what we're doing is looking at the smooth flow of energy through the body relating to the organ function. So particular parts of the body relate to particular organs. And so with menopause, if we're talking about hormones, we're going to talk about the kidneys and the adrenal glands. And so if we influence the adrenal glands to do a better job of what they're doing, and if we influence the digestive system so that it returns to a normal state so that it can absorb the foods needed to create the proper hormones and keep everything balanced, I mean, those are two areas where right away things will come back into a more natural state that will allow the body to return to a normal physiology.
And what is the outcome for something like that, or for someone when they come to get this done? Is it fairly sustainable?
It is sustainable. That's a great question. For women who are fairly healthy in general and are just experiencing some symptoms of menopause, you can do a course of Chinese herbs and acupuncture for a few months, and often it will relieve the symptoms and they'll go away, and so that there's no symptoms left. With women who've gone through a surgery, such as removal of the uterus, a hysterectomy, that's a little bit harder to sustain, and some of those women may be on herbs long term. But that's still more desirable than having to take some of these pharmaceuticals long term, where the side effects may get you into other problems.
Mm-hmm. And what's nice about this is that there are very little, if any, side effects whatsoever, right?
That's true, and they with all the research they're doing nowadays, and they're doing a lot of research on both herbs and acupuncture, and they're showing very few side effects as long as things are prescribed properly.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are some other things that you like to implement within balancing hormones within someone besides acupuncture?
One of the important tools we use with acupuncture is called moxa. We use an herb called mugwort, and we call it. So in English, the herb is called mugwort. When we use it in acupuncture, we burn it near the body. It's like a warming therapy. It's almost like a hot stone massage or something. But you do this warming therapy with an herb right over certain points. They're the same points you would use an acupuncture needle on, but they're more warming and nourishing, and they move the blood better, and they engender a very positive effect, often giving people a little more energy, and can return the physiology in a similar way. It's very relaxing and energizing.
Now, what are some other things you can recommend for somebody to maintain a good hormone balance?
There are lots of lifestyle things that have been suggested by the Chinese over millennia. One of them is regular exercise, and we know about that. That's been shown to be true in lots of research studies in modern times. And the style of exercise that the Chinese prefer for these sorts of health-giving things is called Qigong, and Tai Chi is a separate set of that. But also just walking, running, biking, all kinds of things are great. Our sedentary lifestyle is probably a big part of why we have stress and why we're not able to handle some things. Another area that we would look at would be dietary changes. And the big criticism that you even talk to modern Chinese people, the big criticism they might have for the American diet is that we eat many cold things. We drink cold ice water with our meals. Well, the ancient Chinese looked at the stomach as kind of a hot organ that uses heat, uses like the digestive fire to properly digest food. So if you're pouring ice water down into your stomach while you're trying to eat, while you're trying to digest food, that's going to slow things down. It's kind of going to be the opposite of the moxa therapy I was mentioning, which is very warming and energizing to the body. Well, pouring ice water into your stomach while it's trying to do its job is slowing it down or stopping it from doing its job. So generally they encourage to eat cooked meals, to eat warm foods. Warm foods are like meat is often thought of as warm foods. Anything that is cooked, hot peppers and many warming spices are also very positive for the digestion. So many people in our culture actually have kind of cold digestions from eating too much salad. Vegetables are actually a great source of nutrients, and your doctor is always going to encourage you to eat more vegetables. But your acupuncturist is probably going to say, make sure you cook a lot of those because there's so much fiber and they're so dense that it's actually kind of difficult to get all the nutrients out of that without warming it up first.
Mm-hmm.
So,
now, what are your thoughts about the green smoothie, for instance?
The green smoothie?
Yeah, nowadays you see where they're advertising like a NutriBullet where you can throw some greens and fruits in there and you just, kind of blend it all up, chop it all up, that sort of a thing, and just kind of drink it that way.
Those are very popular nowadays, and they have a lot of nutrients to them. But just to riff on what I was talking about, we'd probably ask you to warm them up so that you really can absorb them easily without a big drain of energy, because that coldness, depending on what you put in it, if you put ice in it, some people put ice in their smoothies to keep it cold, to make it cold. I would really discourage that. I would tend to want to put a lot of ginger in there or other warming herbs, cinnamon and things like that, to warm that up just so that your body can absorb that a little better.
Yeah, I remember years ago I was reading a book that talked about that very thing, about how you want to, as you eat, have more of a warming room temperature or better liquid, because the cold actually shuts down or kind of closes off the pores of the stomach from digestion. And I thought, well, that kind of makes a lot of sense to me, and so that's what I would tend to do, is move away from, the ice drinks, whatever the case is. And I found it, that things just seemed a little bit easier that way.
Yeah, that's what Chinese medicine is about in a way. It's just making things a little bit easier, because, we're always going to live a certain amount of time, but if we make things easier for us, for ourselves and for others, we're going to have less stress, and we're going to be a little healthier, and everything's going to go a little better.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. Now, what can somebody do on their own? I know you had mentioned a particular herb earlier. What are some other things people can maybe add to their diet to help improve hormone function?
Hormones are made, there's a certain food that has been demonized in American culture in the last few decades, and it's called fat. And our hormones are literally made of fats. So if you're not eating, if you're eating steak and you cut off all the fat, or you're eating very lean cuts, or you're eating only chicken with no fat on it, if you're avoiding butter, if you're avoiding dairy, and if you eat vegetable oils, they don't actually provide quite the building blocks we need for those hormones. So we really need more of those saturated fats that were demonized a few decades ago. The research is really coming in nowadays that people need a lot more saturated fats in our diets, a lot more fats from animals. Coconut oil is a good one too, but fat is one of the big things you could make sure is in your diet. You don't need to eat 50% fat. That would be crazy, but just need to make sure there's some in there so your body can make the hormones it needs to balance everything properly.
Now, as a person gets older, as we talk about midlife here, does it slow down hormone production, or is that a result of actual lifestyle?
We naturally slow down hormone production. That's what that's what andropause is about. That's what menopause is about, and it's not a bad thing. It allows us to use our energy in other ways in that part of our life. It's more appropriate to kind of our energy level and our age and our interests.
Such a fascinating thing to approach here. How can people find out more about this? Is there a website they can visit to find out more about what we're talking about here today?
You can visit my website, which is springandautumn.net, and I have some articles up. And you can also just Google Chinese medicine and hormonal balancing, and there may be some good information out there.
Very good. Thank you so much for being on the program. I know this sometimes can be one of those subjects where, you get what looks like good information, and the next thing you know, you run with it, and then you realize, well, maybe that wasn't a good way to go because I just don't feel as good as I think I should. And then you try another direction, but at least I would say between two choices, the best way to go would probably be the one with the least amount of side effects, at least bad side effects anyway, right?
I agree with that. You should try the mildest, most natural approach first. Yeah.
Well, very good. Thank you again for being on the program. What a treat.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Daniel.
You bet. We want to thank you, the listeners out there. You can find out more about this. Visit us at beyond50radio.com. We'll have a hot link there for you as well. That is the number 50. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.